Hello, everybody. Joey here from the Chart Guys, filling in for Dan this weekend as he is on vacation. I'm here to talk about some pot and psychedelic stocks. So, those who haven't seen me on the channel before, I've been trading for 7 years, learning under Dan for 6 of them, and now live about 20 minutes away from him down here in North Carolina. And my first big break in trading was 2018 Canadian legalization. So pot stocks will always be dear to me, and like everybody here, starting to get pretty excited that perhaps we have a serious momentum shift underway. So not going to rehash out all of the fundamental stuff. There's many better resources for that out there, and Dan talked about it a bit in his video last weekend, so I'll be sure to link that in the comments. He goes over his game plans a little bit more in there, but for the here and now, we're just going to look at the charts. So headlines aside, if you look at this chart, it certainly looks like it is starting to base, and bulls are hoping for the first monthly uptrend in the history of MSOS. So we've had this monthly 12 EMA acting as resistance as long as it has existed, and we have bulls pushing up and over. So that key resistance is going to be 988. We do still have 17 days left in the month, so we'll have to see, do bulls get the close over the monthly 12 EMA for the first time in history, or as the month shakes out, do we form a monthly lower high compared to 988 and continue to tighten up? So barring a headline, I would anticipate that a lower high compared to 988 is the most likely scenario, but obviously we are all looking for that headline. We've got out of the money calls starting to come in. We've got Twitter Fervor starting to fire off. So everything's kind of slotting into place that this could be it. But the charts are going to tell us, is it or isn't it? So let's zoom on in. Looking at the weekly, we've got a weekly uptrend here, and that's going to be our guide for the monthly bounce. So key weekly support is 599, and then zooming in once more, we've got a nice daily uptrend as our guide. So we've got a fresh daily higher low at 704. So we can say as long as 704 is holding, then bulls maintain tight control and have their eyes set on that 988. So bulls not in positions will be looking for daily higher lows. Aggressive bulls not in positions will be looking for daily higher lows compared to 704. And the more aggressive bulls are going to be looking for hourly higher lows. So at this point, anything over 763 would be an hourly higher low. We've got nice hourly 12 EMA support. So we can see after hours on Friday, there was some decent upside. Good bit came back, but in after hours trading, it's not that notable. So the key thing is going to be, do bulls hold hourly 12 EMA? Does the 5-minute back burner get bought up? So we've been seeing back burners hit, and we know that back burners hitting are a sign of a very bullish environment. So 5-minute oversold, marking your hourly higher low, that's best case scenario. If that fails to happen, that'll be some daily consolidation looking to shape up. Then we'll want to see hourly oversold mark our daily higher low. If that fails to happen, that would be the first sign that perhaps a monthly lower high compared to 988 is beginning to shape on up. So going back into the 5-minute chart here on MSOS, if we turn on our RSI projection tool, right now oversold conditions on the 5-minute is around 790, and then we go back to our hourly time frame, and we can see that hourly 12 EMA is a bit above that, but the nature of how RSI develops as price moves is when if price were to come down from here, this oversold level is going to rise on up. So I'm anticipating that we will have an opportunity at 5-minute oversold and hourly 12 EMA. And if bulls buy that up, then that tells us that there's still plenty of interest here ahead of a headline. Now, it is worth noting that US markets are closed on Monday, and Canadian markets will continue to trade. So everything that we're talking about now could be a very different scene come Tuesday, depending on what the underlying MSOs do on Monday's trading. So that's what we're looking at on MSOS here. And to talk a bit about headlines and how to be notified if we get headlines and how to utilize TradingView alerts. The main style alert that I love for news is a percentage move. So I'll show you how I have it set up here. Right click, go to add alert, and then instead of crossing, I go to move up percentage. And actually I got to get to the right time frame. 1 second. I have this on the 5-minute time frame is where my alert is set. So right click, add alert, crossing, switch that to move up percent. And then I've just got a simple 2% in a 1-minute bar. I put this to once per bar so that I don't have to continue to reset it, and then create that alert. And then that will let you know that if we see a 2% move up in one 5-minute bar, that you will be alerted. So it's definitely a bit on the lower side percentage wise for news, because I'd rather have false signals than get a late sign that we've got a headline underway here. So I've got those set to the upside. I've got those set to the downside. And that's how I'm staying on top of the news personally. And I know nobody wants to talk about this, but on the note of downside, obviously, if the DEA comes out and says, no, we're not rescheduling, it's not going to happen, we all know what to anticipate if that were to be the case there. So as much as no one wants to think about it, we've got to make sure that we have plans for whatever shakes out here, because the last thing you want to do is get overzealous right before some news, hopefully comes out, and then you get the opposite, and then you get bagged. So got to have stops, got to have your risk managed, and that is that there. So that's what we're looking at on MSOS as far as resistances. We've just got 880 and then the 988 high of the last big move on the initial news that, perhaps this rescheduling could be coming down the pipeline. So as far as our MSOs, we have, I've got them listed here in order of relative strength. GTBIF strongest, then CURLF, then TCNNF, and then CRLBF. So looking at GTBIF, we've already confirmed this monthly uptrend, and it is the first legit monthly uptrend since back here in September 2020. So very notable, obviously not a ton of follow through at this point, only breaking by 6 pennies, but we can just see the serious relative strength in GTBIF compared to the others. And a good way to look at this is if we look at the July low and look at where we are now, we are 62% above that July low. If we go look at the other names, CURLF, taking that summer 2022 low, if we were the same relative strength as GTBIF, we'd be trading up in the 770s. Looking at TCNNF, if we take that summer 2022 low and go up 62%, we would be trading in the upper 17s. And CRLBF, we would be trading in the right around 4 psychological. So we know that GTBIF is the leader of these MSOs, so that is a good place to be focusing on here. So looking at the weekly, we have got a weekly uptrend, we have got a monthly uptrend, and we have a daily uptrend. It was looking like a potential daily head and shoulders here, but we went to higher highs. And that's when you're going to see the less likely scenario play out, which a daily lower high compared to 1212 was the most likely scenario. When you're going to see the less likely scenario play out, increasing volume is very often going to accompany the move. So that's what we've got here. And now daily higher low support is at 1067. That is the most important level moving forward for bulls to keep tight control on the weekly time frame. So same deal goes for these MSOs as it does for MSOS. Going to be evaluating backburners. Does 5-minute oversold mark our hourly higher low? Does hourly oversold mark our daily higher low? As long as those things are happening, then bulls keep their foot on the gas as we look for this momentum shift to see some follow through. And speaking of these momentum shifts, just to kind of show some examples, if we look at Bitcoin, we know that Bitcoin was getting smacked down for quite some time, weekly downtrend for months on end. And then when we got this first weekly uptrend, when you can say this is the first whatever uptrend in X amount of time, very often that will see solid follow through. So in a best case scenario, MSO or cannabis stock bulls would love to see follow through like that. But, this is the mindset of if we get this first monthly uptrend in MSOS, it is going to be notable. So got to have plans now so that you can get in early. And this is the type of thing where, positioning on that break definitely seemed crazy. But at this point, 166% move off of that. Now, on that note, you gotta make sure that you've got your risk managed. If you're trying to buy a bull break, you don't want to stick your stop down at the low because that's massive risk. You're risking 50% there. You can make entries into bullishness with strength, but you got to make sure that you have your stop close, because there's absolutely nothing saying that MSOS couldn't, come on up, break that resistance, and then come back down like that. The charts can do anything. So we've always got to make sure that we've got our risk managed on something like that. But if we get this monthly uptrend for the first time ever on MSOS, that will be very notable. So getting back here to CURLF, it's a pretty similar deal. Let's just start with the monthly. We're looking for the first monthly uptrend since that September 2020. So the key level here is going to be 580. We've got a weekly uptrend as the guide within there. Weekly higher low support is 345. And we've got a daily uptrend guide for that weekly move. So as long as bulls are holding 411, they maintain control. This upper wick here, it looks nasty on the daily, but when you zoom in to even just the 1 minute, we can see that was more of a lack of liquidity, seeing a serious 1 minute candle, 10% in 1 minute. So I don't view that as like a red flag that bulls gave that all back or something like that. And with that, I'm certainly going to be watching this 483 resistance before the high of Friday, 515, and then our monthly resistance is 580, that key level. So looking at TCNNF, got a very clear area of resistance here on the daily. So bulls need to get through 625 to join the others in confirming a weekly uptrend here. And then it will be about the monthly. Can we get over monthly 12 EMA for the first time in a long time? And that key level is going to be 780. And last but not least, CRLBF. Looking at the monthly, we're still a good bit away from that monthly resistance, 277. And like TCNNF, we have bulls trying to confirm the weekly uptrend, joining MSOS, joining GTBIF. So that level is going to be 199. And then we're looking up to that 277 monthly resistance. Like everybody else as well, got a daily uptrend, daily higher low support, going to be 156. And like everybody else as well, going to be watching our back burners, going to be evaluating the health based on how those back burners hit. And the psychology behind that is when you have money that isn't in, when you get those pullbacks, if they're eager to get in, they're going to buy 5 minute oversold. If they're not quite that eager, they want to be a bit more conservative, they're going to buy hourly oversold. And those hitting tell us that there's more money waiting to come on in here. So another value of these OTC traded individual MSOs is that they are not going to halt when MSOS halts. So say we do have some news that comes out, MSOS sees a big spike up and then halts. These will likely keep trading. So as well as MSOX, the 2 times leverage MSOS. So it's good to have some game plans for maybe how you want to allocate some capital to these on a positive headline halt there for MSOS. So again, going to link Dan's video. He talks more about this stuff in there. So that is the US scene. Looking at the Canadian scene, very different week that we had here. Tilray, just daily stair step down, and there's no fervor here. That is for sure. But you've got to imagine that if we get rescheduling news, that the Canadian names will see some pump up with it. So nice daily stair step here to be watching for that action. And if there's news that breaks the stair step, then, all bets are off as far as a daily lower high compared to 254. But in an absence of news, we'll certainly be looking for that daily lower high there. And bigger picture, monthly chart, another one where monthly 12 EMA has been rejecting us for multiple years at this point, and look where we're pulling back from now. So it will be notable when bulls get over these monthly 12 EMAs and get the closes over the monthly 12 EMAs, but no sign of it yet here on Tilray. And as far as the psychedelic names, we've got some strength on their own. Obviously, this headline is pertaining to the cannabis names, but again, you've got to imagine that the whole space as a unit is likely to rise on up. And even headlines aside, there's so much talk about the headlines here. without any knowledge of headlines, this looks like a chart, going back to MSOS monthly here, this looks like a chart that is trying to base. Forget the headlines. The charts tell you that bulls are trying to shift some momentum. If we look at CMPS, the charts tell you that bulls are trying to shift some momentum. We based out for a long time here and then got a serious flush out, and bears found no acceptance down here. If bears were going to remain strong on CMPS, they would have defended this area of support as resistance and seen a pullback there. But bulls V-shaped right back up to resistance, and now we're looking at a potential weekly inverse head and shoulders here. We've got a very clear wall of support. So let's drop some lines on there. Let's see. Oops, that's not right. Look at that. So looking at the 1086 to 1148, very clear wall of support, and then, or resistance, excuse me. And then before that, we've got this 1012 and the high of last week, 1018. So we know there's a lot of bears playing off of this. If bulls can get up and through, then that will give some extra punch to try to shift some momentum. So another thing to note here, we've got our weekly EMAs fixing to cross bullish. And when the next candle prints come Tuesday, that will likely get the cross. And we can see we have never had a sustained bull cross on weekly EMAs. Tried it back here in November 2021, fell right through. Tried it back here in September 2022, fell right back through. So is this time going to be different? Are bulls going to be able to land a back test of these EMAs and then go back up and break 1018 and then power through 1146, excuse me. Where's 8? There's 8. Power through that to get the momentum shift? Time will tell, but bulls definitely want to hold this 780 range on this pullback to create or to have healthy consolidation and try to get that weekly uptrend follow through to go take a crack at that resistance. If we pull back further down below, then that's when bears will be creating room for a weekly lower high, and any hopes of cracking through this resistance will have to be on the back burner for a bit. So as far as our daily chart, just daily stair step down, that's going to be the guide. And we'll see the size of the next daily bounce will be very telling. Do we see a big enough daily bounce where bulls can recreate or reform a daily uptrend? Or do we see a weak daily bounce where bears confirm the daily downtrend and see deeper weekly consolidation? So next bounce is going to be crucial. Daily stair step, very clean guide for that. Looking at ATAI on the monthly here, testing monthly 12 EMA for the first time in history, and we've got monthly resistance at 239 here. So as far as clarity, we're still just straight off the low on the weekly, and we've got a daily uptrend, daily 12 EMA. So we can say as long as bulls are holding daily 12 EMA, they maintain tight control of the weekly move here on ATAI. And if we lose the daily 12 EMA, that would be some weekly consolidation fixing to shape on up, and bulls would need the weekly uptrend to have a more sustained momentum shift here. And MNMD, we've got a clear area of resistance here on the monthly at $5 psychological, and another name with that monthly 12 EMA resistance. We're testing it right now, and bulls want to get up and over, get through 5 psychological to get a momentum shift underway. So we've got a weekly uptrend, anything over 292, going to be a weekly higher low. And we've got a daily uptrend and daily 12 EMA as the guide for that weekly move. So anything over 353, excuse me, going to be a daily higher low on this consolidation. And if bulls show up to begin the week, then they'll remain fine, and this daily 12 EMA will continue to hold. If bears show up to begin the week and we lose the daily 12 EMA, then that's what would begin to set up a potential head and shoulders to get some weekly consolidation underway. So that's the scene. Set your alerts, stay on top of the news, and probably a good time to, if you're an active trader, maybe spend a little more time at the computer in these coming weeks, because when you get the calls rolling in out of the money, and I think a good chunk of them expire this Friday on a shortened week out of the money. So is that somebody who knows something? Maybe, maybe not. We also, to kind of talk on that note, we saw a bunch of calls rolling in up here as well. So it's not like anybody who's buying large amounts of out of the money calls has inside information and knows what's up. So you can't just trade off of that alone. But more often than not, when you see those things happen down the line, you say, oh, I guess, it makes sense why those calls were rolling in. So each little thing like that kind of tips the scales a little bit towards, this headline coming through. And then if that happens, the show's on. You start talking about being able to bank. You start talking about being able to uplist. And that just is what will ignite, hopefully, a hype run. So hope everyone has a good long weekend. If you are in the US, if you're in Canada, you got to trade on Monday. And we'll see if the olden days of, back in the Canadian cannabis run, when the US was closed and Canada was open, you would see a lot of volatility on those days. It's like bulls or bears, whichever side would try to pull one over on the opposing side when there was less dollar volume being traded there. So let's see what we get. Take care, and we will be back soon with more updates as this all shakes on out.